Audio Jungle.
The old man was sitting on a chair in a black suit, with curly hair and a fluffy beard, and hung up the din mushi on the table. Speak up, everyone, and express your opinions. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the other 4 people around the table. The 5 of them are the top leaders of the world government and the pillars of the world government, the 5 elders. Borsalino is just lazy and can't even do such a small thing. The god of agriculture shepherd Ten Pit frowned and said, "The responsibility is not entirely on him. After all, the instructions we gave him were to bring the experimental subject here alive. Maybe such instructions made him unable to perform his duties." The god of finance, Izambaran V. Nasusho, held a katana in his arms, tapped his bald head with his right hand, and explained for Borsalino. After all, they still need Borsalino's help, and such obedient subordinates are not easy to find. The problem now is that Bartholomew Big Bear actually helped the experimental subject escape. It has become a question whether he will still be obedient now. The god of environment, Marcus Maz, said, and Vegabank actually secretly developed the fish fruit and didn't report it. He also planned to mark it as a failed product and hide it. The god of law, Topman Vachali, looked angrily at the god of science defense, Jagoluja Satan, who was sitting next to him, and asked, "Big Bear and Vegabank, are these 2 guys still trustworthy?" "Hey." Satan chuckled disdainfully and said, "Don't worry, I still have a handle on Big Bear and Vegabank. There are still some things that need to use his wisdom. We can't deal with him now. When he loses his usefulness, it's time to settle accounts with him." Peter asked, "What about the experimental subject?" "It's not like he ate the Nika fruit anyway, so just issue a bounty," Satan said lightly. "What's the amount? Since you can survive Borsalino, 100 million berries, regardless of life or death." Satan tapped his holy cane and made a decision. Soon, a portrait of a young man with white hair and brown skin was printed on the bounty order with a price of 100 million berries. Above the bounty order, it was written that it was regardless of life or death. This batch of bounties were sandwiched in newspapers and distributed all over the North Sea. A beautiful pink-haired beauty looked at the freshly baked newspaper in her hand. On the bounty order sandwiched in the middle of the newspaper, Muyun's cheerful head was printed on it, but the 100 million bounty was abruptly displayed under the boy's head. 100 million berries. This is an incredible thing. After saying that, the girl threw the bounty out. Grand Line, Alabasta Kingdom, Rainy Land. In the largest casino in the Alabasta Kingdom, Rain Banquet. "Boss, this is the new bounty issued today." A waiter in a suit came to Crocodile's table with a stack of bounties. Sand Crocodile waved his hand and said calmly, "Spread these bounties." "Yes." The waiter quickly picked up the bounty and walked out the door. "Wait." Crocodile stopped the waiter and asked, "Is there anything in here that needs attention?" The waiter quickly began to search and quickly pulled out a bounty and handed it to Crocodile. "Boss, here is a bounty of 100 million berries." Crocodile took the bounty and looked at the handsome face on it and the amount below. "Tell everyone to pay attention to this guy. Since he can get such a high bounty, he should not be a simple person." "Yes." Chambord Islands. 13 good islands. And Xiaqi's blackmail bar. Rayleigh shook the wine glass in his hand and looked at Xiaqi, who was wiping the glass. "Any interesting news recently, Xiaqi?" Xiaqi pointed to a bounty on the bar with a smile on her face and said, "The new bounty just came out. The first bounty is 100 million Bailey." "Oh?" Rayleigh narrowed his eyes slightly. Looking at the bounty on the bar, he sighed, "The newcomers nowadays are really amazing." When Rayleigh saw the portrait on the bounty clearly, he frowned. Lunaria Tribe. After all, he was also the vice captain of One Piece before. Soon from the appearance of Muyun on the bounty, he recognized that the boy on the bounty was from the Lunaria tribe. Rayleigh took a sip of the wine in the glass, his brows relaxed, and said with a smile, "Let the young people worry about this kind of thing. After all, I'm retired." When Xiaoqi heard him say this, she looked at him with a smile and said, "When the time comes, don't show off." Rayleigh didn't say anything else, just smiled and slowly drank the wine in his hand. New World. 10,000 countries. This is the territory of the four emperors Big Mom Charlotte Linlin. Charlotte Lingling looked at the new bounty, pointed at one of them excitedly, and said to her eldest son, Charlotte Perispero, the candy minister of Manhwa, Mama, look what interesting things I found. Perispero, bring this person to me alive." "Yes, Mom, I will tell everyone to bring this guy to you alive." Perispero smiled and bent down, then slowly walked out. Charlotte Lingling looked at the bounty in her hand with fascination and turned around excitedly. Mama, Manhwa is going to add a new race. Mom is really happy." New World. In the territory of Wano Country. On Oni Island. Kaido picked up the big wine jar beside him and poured the wine into his mouth frantically. Then he slapped the back of Jean, who was sitting next to him in black, and laughed, "Ha ha ha, Jean, this guy above is not your illegitimate child, he really looks like you." Jean frowned and looked at the bounty order of Muyun in his hand. Looking at the characteristics of the Lunaria tribe of Muyun in the photo, he didn't know what was going on. As soon as the bounty order was issued today, Quinn broke into Jin's office with it. Jean couldn't figure out whether the boy above was related to him. Quinn said, "Brother Kaido, in my opinion, this guy should be a clone of Vegabank. When I worked with that guy before, he cloned a clone. This guy on the bounty order is probably also a clone of Vegabank." Hearing Quinn's analysis, Jin's veins popped up on his head, and he squeezed the bounty order in his hand into a ball. Then he stood up and left here silently. Kaido glanced at Quinn indifferently and said with a mouthful of alcohol, "Quinn, you talk too much." Quinn also found that he seemed to have said the wrong thing, and silently picked up the red bean soup at hand and drank it. For a while, because of a bounty order, the atmosphere on the sea began to become tense. But the protagonist on the bounty order didn't know that his next situation would become particularly difficult. The North Sea. Nodis. It is a country located in the North Sea with a very developed economy. Boom! Suddenly there was a loud noise, and a deep pit in the shape of a bear's paw suddenly appeared in the woods, scaring the surrounding birds to flee in panic. "Where is this?" A weak voice came from the deep pit, and a brown-skinned hand stretched out from the deep pit and slowly sat up. "I am escaping from Agate Island?" Muyun looked around, looking at the peaceful atmosphere around him, and gradually let down his guard. "It seems that I have escaped from Borsalino." "Well, the person who saved me in the end was Big Bear." Muyun sighed and said, "It seems that I don't know how to repay this favor." At that time, he had no ability to resist. Muyun had already prepared for the fate of being taken away by a yellow monkey. I didn't expect that Big Bear's meatball fruit would save his life in the end. Muyun slowly stood up from the deep pit and began to check his injuries up and down. Soon he found that except for being a little weak, his injuries had healed miraculously. As expected of the bloodline of the Lunaria clan, the physical fitness is good. Muyun touched the injured part up and down in surprise, sighing at the strength of the bloodline. But looking back, he thought again that if it was just the bloodline of the Lunaria clan, it should not have such a strong recovery ability. It seems that the fantasy beast fruit I ate is also helping me recover my body. Muyun stretched out his left hand, turned his left hand into a dragon claw state, and looked up and down happily. At that time, he ate the fruit in a hurry, and was forced to participate in the battle before he studied it carefully. Now he can finally slowly experience the wonderful changes brought by the devil fruit. Suddenly, a strong feeling of hunger came, and Muyun's face turned pale. His left hand also changed back from the dragon claw state and fell to the ground weakly. "I'm so hungry." Muyun felt like he hadn't eaten for 4 or 5 days, and he couldn't use any strength. If a cow appeared in front of him at this time, he felt that he could swallow the cow in one bite. "No, I have to find something to fill my stomach quickly, otherwise I will die here sooner or later. Mu Yun gritted his teeth, tried his best to turn over, and slowly climbed up the pit. If he didn't find food, he would become the first one to starve to death among the traversers. It was not easy to survive from Borsellino, but now he had to starve to death in this forest in humiliation. It's impossible. Mu Yun felt aggrieved when he thought about it, and then he climbed faster. Humph. Suddenly, a muffled groan came from the edge of the deep pit. Mu Yun looked up quickly. On the edge of the deep pit, there stood a 2-meter-tall, sturdy wild boar covered in mud. The wild boar was looking at him angrily. It was clearly sleeping comfortably, but a loud noise took away all its last sleepiness. Brother Pig was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. It just wanted to wait for the guy who woke it up to climb up and poke a few holes in its body with its fangs. Food. When Mu Yun saw the wild boar, 2 flashes shot out of his eyes. He drooled inexplicably from the corners of his mouth, and his mind kept circling around all kinds of pork-cooked delicacies. I've decided to eat you. Mu Yun kicked his feet hard and rushed towards the wild boar above his head in an instant. Seeing this, the wild boar immediately lowered its body and prepared to pierce Mu Yun with its fangs. Piercing with the flame claw, Mu Yun swung his right hand violently and attacked the wild boar's head. At this time, his right hand had turned into a dark dragon claw, which was tightly wrapped in flames. A terrifying momentum rose from Mu Yun's body. The wild boar had been frightened by Mu Yun's momentum and woke up from his anger, and a trace of retreat flashed in his eyes. But it was too late. I saw that Mu Yun's right hand instantly sank into the wild boar's head, and the flames burning in his hand instantly roasted the pork around his arm. Waves of roasted pig aroma came from the wild boar's head. Mu Yun's saliva flowed out of the corners of his mouth uncontrollably. The wild boar didn't even have a chance to react, and fell to the ground with a bang. Mu Yun quickly pulled out his right hand, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily turned up. Eat delicious, delicious pork. He slowly squatted beside the wild boar, humming a song while starting to deal with the wild boar. Soon, the wild boar was cleaned up by Mu Yun, and a thick branch passed through the wild boar's mouth. Suddenly, a ball of flames rose from the ground, and Mu Yun placed the wild boar in his hand on the flames. Mu Yun had figured out the fire control talent of the Lunaria tribe. If Jing, who was far away in the New World, knew that he used his ability like this, his face would definitely become very ugly. Delicious! So delicious! The wild boar meat was soon roasted by Mu Yun. Mu Yun held the roasted wild boar meat and ate it voraciously. This is definitely the most delicious pork I have ever eaten. The hunger had affected Mu Yun's taste. Even the most ordinary roasted wild boar meat had now become a delicacy in Mu Yun's mouth. The steaming wild boar meat was soon stuffed into Mu Yun's stomach like a hungry wolf. Mu Yun touched his round belly, and a sense of happiness came to him. He sighed, "I'm full, I feel so comfortable eating. There is nothing happier than having a full meal. After eating and drinking, I should think about what to do next." After the hunger subsided, Mu Yun realized that he couldn't relax too much now. Although I escaped from Borsellino, the news of my escape should soon reach the ears of the world government. The 5 old guys of the 5 elders should be so angry that they will jump up and down. I don't know how much the amount on my bounty will be by then. Mu Yun sat cross-legged on the ground, supporting his head with his right hand and thinking. After all, he escaped from H-Heed Island, where many secrets of the world government are hidden. Now his memory is still very confused. At that time, too many memories emerged, and many memories of his previous life became confused. In addition, he had to fight Borsellino, the strongest fighter in the Navy, just after waking up, so there was no time to sort out the memories in his mind. Even so, he still knew some of the secrets hidden by the world government. Mu Yun sighed and said, "Hey, my amount should not be too low, and I don't know if there will be people who are blind enough to bother me." Mu Yun stood up and looked at his tattered clothes. "Think about these troubles later. The most urgent thing now is to find out where I was photographed by Deshawn. Also, get some money around and change into clean clothes. The whole town was surrounded by flowers and laughter, and people's faces were filled with bright smiles, and the sound of salutes and laughter were intertwined. The streets were full of various stalls, and children drooled in front of the food stalls. The boss was also very enthusiastic to let the children try for free. Mu Yun walked on the busy street in tattered clothes, which was out of tune with the jubilant crowd around him. Young man. Suddenly, Mu Yun felt someone patted his shoulder. He quickly turned his head to look to the side, and a simple-dressed ant stood beside him with a smile. Mu Yun did not know the other party and asked, "Hello, what can I do for you?" The ant asked, "Young man, are you going to wear this dress to attend the celebration? Is there any difficulty?" Mu Yun looked at his tattered clothes and scratched his cheeks in embarrassment. He was embarrassed to say that he was penniless and had no money to buy clothes. The ant saw Mu Yun's embarrassment at a glance and said quickly, "Young man, come with me." As she said that, the ant pulled Mu Yun through the crowd and soon stopped in front of a stall full of clothes. "Young man, try this dress, it should fit you well." The ant picked up a black shirt from the stall and handed it to Mu Yun. Mu Yun looked at the black shirt in front of him and said embarrassedly, "Auntie, I don't have money to buy clothes now." He thought that he did not speak clearly, making the ant feel that he could not find a place to sell clothes. In fact, he had no money to buy clothes, and he was thinking about walking around the town and finding a job to earn some money. You can't rob people on the road. The education he received did not allow him to do that kind of thing. The ant smiled and waved her hand, saying, "No need for money, just think of it as a gift from the ant." After that, she stuffed the clothes into Mu Yun's hands and pushed him behind the curtain for changing clothes. Mu Yun stared blankly at the clothes in his hands and was deeply moved. No matter what world you are in, there are still many good people. Soon, the ant took another pair of shorts and stretched them behind the curtain. "Change your pants too, after all, they have so many holes." "Thank you." Mu Yun took the pants and thanked the ant. "What are you thanking for? Change your clothes quickly." The ant smiled and urged Mu Yun to change his ragged clothes quickly. Soon, Mu Yun changed out of his old clothes and put on the black shirt and blue denim shorts that the ant picked. He lifted the curtain and walked out. "You look very energetic." A sweet voice came from beside Mu Yun. He looked beside him, and a beautiful woman who looked a bit like the ant was looking him up and down with a smile. "Who are you?" Mu Yun asked. I'm the daughter of the stall owner. My mother just went out for something," the beautiful woman explained with a smile. Mu Yun scratched his face awkwardly. After all, the clothes he was wearing were given to him for free by the ant. Now that the ant is not here, his daughter doesn't know if she knows the situation. Don't wait, ask him for money. It will be embarrassing if he doesn't have money. The beauty looked at Mu Yun, who was standing there at a loss, covered her mouth and smiled. "Don't worry, my mother has told me, you can wear the clothes without worry, I won't charge you. After all, everyone has difficulties. We are also very happy to help as much as we can." Mu Yun looked at the kind beauty in front of him and said seriously, "Thank you, I will repay you." He could only remember the appearance of the mother and daughter in his heart. When he has the ability in the future, he will come back here to repay them. Soon, many customers came to the stall slowly, and the beauty began to greet the guests busy. Seeing this, Mu Yun silently retreated into the crowd. He still didn't get in the way here, and made money as soon as possible to repay them. Walking on the street, looking at the lively crowd around, Mu Yun frowned and thought about how he should make his first pot of gold. After all, he should be a bounty person now. All serious jobs should not be suitable for him. He can't stay in one place all the time. The world government will definitely try their best to find me. Where can I make money? Suddenly, a figure blocked Mu Yun's way. Mu Yun almost collided with the person. Touching a car? I was touched by a car in the world of One Piece? This thought flashed through Muyun's mind subconsciously. The man who blocked Muyun walked to Muyun with a smile on his face and said, "Brother, do you want to find a good job? I have a good recommendation here, and I guarantee that it will be lucrative." Looking at the man who was introducing enthusiastically beside him, Muyun felt a little weird for some reason. "What kind of job is lucrative?" Muyun asked subconsciously. The man smiled even more brightly when he heard Muyun ask this, and quickly replied, "I guarantee that you will make a lot of money." Gambling? Hearing the man's words, Muyun suddenly thought of this word. "Damn, I'm penniless, and you still want me to gamble? Don't you know that I, Mu, will never reconcile with gambling and drugs in this life?" In Muyun's heart, the man in front of him has been labeled a bad guy. "How do we get there?" Muyun approached the man and asked in a low voice. The man smirked, "Follow me." After that, the man led Muyun into an empty alley. Muyun glanced at the wretched figure of the man leading the way in front of him and sneered, "You want to cheat me? I'll give you a chance to cheat today." He was worried about how to earn his first pot of gold. Isn't this a pie in the sky? Robbing the bad guy's money, he would have no psychological burden at all. As the two slowly walked into the alley, another side of the town was revealed to Muyun. Many ragged and skinny people came into Muyun's sight. Unexpectedly, this town's prosperous appearance actually hides such a side. The thin people lying in the alley showed expressions of fear when they saw the man walking in front of Muyun, and they all hid to the side. When the man passed by, they looked at Muyun with pity again. They actually felt that Muyun was more pitiful than them. The pity of these people made Muyun feel puzzled. Is there any detail that he overlooked? Didn't he take me to the casino? Although there were many questions in his mind, Muyun was still a little confident in his ability. At worst, he could just run away. It's not like he hadn't run away before. Under the guidance of the man in front, Muyun soon came to an empty alley. "We're here." The man who led the way stopped and stood there. Muyun looked around and didn't find anything that looked like the entrance to the casino. "Did you take the wrong way? There's nothing here?" At this time, a group of hideous-looking gangs ran out from both sides of the alley. Some of them held hemp ropes in their hands, and some carried sacks, looking at Muyun with fierce eyes. Their eyes made Muyun a little unhappy. The group looked at him as if they were looking at a pig. "Waste! You are so slow even when I asked you to lead someone." At this time, a tall man walked out of the crowd and kicked the man who was leading the way out viciously. "Boss, spare me. It's mainly because this guy walked too slowly. It has nothing to do with me." The man spit out blood and knelt on the ground begging for mercy. "That," Muyun interrupted at this time, "where is the profitable business?" As soon as the voice fell, there was silence around, and then the people who gathered around laughed. "Ha ha ha, this kid still doesn't understand the situation. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'm dying of laughter. How can someone be so naive? Ha ha ha." The leader of the group raised the steel knife in his hand and laughed. "Boy, you've been fooled. We don't want to find any way to make money for you. We just want to sell you, because we are slave traders." The two of them were so angry that they were beaten. Slave traders. Muyun's face darkened instantly. Originally, he was planning to rob the bastards who opened the casino. Unexpectedly, these people were slave traders who were even more unscrupulous than the casino owners. These beasts can no longer be considered human beings. They have lost their humanity. "Ha ha ha, look at this silly boy. He's so scared that he dares not move. This way we don't have to do it, and we can save some energy. Ha ha, hurry up and finish this job, and catch a few more while the celebration is not over." "That's right, I'm a little tight on money recently, so I'll make more money by catching more people." The minions around raised their weapons and stared at Muyun with a grin on their faces. They were worried that if they were not careful, the prey would slip away from their hands. After all, it was not easy to get such a good product. The unique white short hair and brown skin, and the handsome face and good figure. It's really the best of the best. If it is sent to the auction house, it will definitely sell for a good price. Okay, stop talking nonsense and get rid of him quickly. The leader of the slave traders waved his hand casually, signaling his men to quickly get rid of Muyun. After all, he also wanted to catch more people and make more money while the town celebration was held. Okay, boss. Don't worry, boss, we will get rid of this guy soon. After receiving the order, the subordinates around raised their weapons with ferocious faces and surrounded Muyun. The leader of the slave traders turned around, took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it. After all, he had experienced this kind of scene too many times. He was no longer surprised. Bang, bang, bang. Ah! Ouch! Help! A sound of fists and feet came from behind him, and shrill screams resounded in this quiet alley. These guys, don't they know how to be gentle? If the goods are damaged, the price will be greatly discounted. Hey! Be gentle, don't damage the goods. The leader of the slave traders shouted angrily, if the goods are damaged by you guys, I will punish you. A bunch of useless things, you can't even do a little thing. Have you solved it? There is another target waiting. He waited for a long time, but didn't hear his men behind him answer him. The leader angrily threw the cigarette in his mouth to the ground, stepped on it twice, and extinguished it. Turned around and shouted loudly, are you deaf? Answer me. But the scene in front of him instantly made his expression ugly. The leader's eyes were wide open, the corners of his mouth were trembling, and sweat seemed to be dripping on his forehead. The scene in front of him at this time was completely beyond his cognition. All his men fell to the ground, and blood slowly flowed from under them, slowly flowed to his feet. What happened? How could this happen? He couldn't figure it out, it was just a simple action. Why did such an unexpected situation occur? But he soon realized that this was not the time to be stunned. He turned around quickly and ran back desperately. Ah! He screamed in fear, rolling and crawling in the alley. He didn't even notice that his target had disappeared. Now he had only one idea: run. Run desperately. Suddenly, his steps were unstable and he fell to the ground. But when he was about to get up, suddenly, a figure blocked his way. He lowered his head, his body trembled constantly, and he kept muttering, please, let me go. No, don't hurt me. I have money. I can give you a lot of money. Let me go. He knelt on the ground and begged for mercy desperately, because he knew in his heart who was blocking him at this time. Suddenly, a claw covered with dark scales grabbed his collar, slowly lifted him up from the ground. The one standing in front of the slave trader leader was none other than Muyun, who was just targeted by the slave trader. Muyun looked at the slave trader leader, who kept begging for mercy, without a trace of emotion on his face. Because he knew that if he let these scum go today, more people would suffer in the future. So he couldn't be merciful. Soft. A fierce light flashed in Muyun's eyes, and he said in a cold tone, let you go? I believe many innocent people have begged you like this. Did you let them go? The crimes you have committed do not allow me to have any mercy on you. As he spoke, flames began to burn in Muyun's hands, and the flames burned towards the slave trader in his hand little by little. The slave trader looked at the flames coming towards him in horror and struggled desperately in Muyun's hands. Muyun said coldly, in the next life, think about how to be a human being again. When the flames came into contact with the slave trader, the expression of the slave trader suddenly became fierce. He quickly reached into the pocket of his clothes, and then quickly grabbed a handful of unknown powder from his pocket and sprinkled it towards Muyun. His sneak attack was so fast that Muyun was not prepared at all. The unknown powder was instantly sucked into Muyun's body. Cough, cough. Muyun quickly threw the slave trader in his hand against the wall and immediately covered his mouth and nose to avoid the powder in the air. Cough. What is this? Muyun's face became very ugly, and he questioned the slave trader who slid down from the wall. I was careless. I thought this guy had lost his will. I didn't expect he had a backup plan. Ha ha ha. The slave trader wrapped in flames laughed wildly. Looking at Mu Yun's uncomfortable look, he didn't even feel the burning of the flames now. Ha ha ha. The poison that kills instantly is not good. This is the most toxic poison in the entire North Sea. It cost me a lot of money to buy it at that time. Let you taste it too, and be buried with me. Monster. Ha ha ha. Mu Yun stretched out his right hand and squeezed the slave trader wrapped in flames. Boom. The flames wrapped around the slave trader burst into flames instantly. The scorching heat instantly burned the bastard to ashes. Watching the slave trader finally drifting into the air, Mu Yun still felt unsatisfied. After all, he lacked experience in the martial arts world. I didn't expect him to fight back desperately. The poison in his body soon began to take effect. Mu Yun felt as if his whole body was melting, and he felt weak all over, and sweat began to appear on his forehead. Damn it! I don't know how resistant the Lunaria bloodline is to poison. Mu Yun covered his mouth, and his face became more and more ugly. He dragged his body with all his strength and walked out of the alley. Suddenly, his leg staggered and fell to the ground. No way, is the journey only here? I'm not willing. Mu Yun clenched his fists unwillingly and pounded the ground. Do you need help? Suddenly, a sexy voice came from above Mu Yun's head. The first time I saw her was when she was about to die. Who is it? Mu Yun struggled to prop himself up and tried to stand up. After all, he didn't know whether the person coming was an enemy or a friend. He didn't want to expose his weak side to the other party. You still have the strength to move after being poisoned by this kind of poison. It seems that your body is quite strong. As he said that, a beautiful figure suddenly appeared in front of Mu Yun. Mu Yun carefully looked at the stranger who suddenly appeared. Standing in front of him was a sexy woman with pink hair, wearing a light pink short-sleeved dress and pink high heels. There was a 6-pattern tattoo on both legs, but Mu Yun kept staring at the eyebrows of the person who came. Curly eyebrows. Hey, Reiju, Mu Yun blurted out subconsciously. Do you know me? Reiju looked at the weak Mu Yun with interest and asked with a smile. Although she was smiling at this time, Mu Yun could still feel that the atmosphere around him suddenly became cold. Mu Yun smiled bitterly and didn't know how to start. What should I say? Am I telling you that I know you from reading comics? I heard about it from my friends. Mu Yun looked away and explained in a low voice. Reiju walked in front of him, looked Mu Yun up and down, and thought to herself, I knew it was a lie as soon as I heard it. But she didn't delve into it. After all, these were irrelevant trivial matters. Reiju sniffed the poison powder scattered around, smiled and said to Mu Yun, Do you want me to help remove the poison? Mu Yun's head began to feel a little dizzy at this time. He retreated to the wall, leaned against the wall and said, What are the conditions? You can't be kind enough to help a stranger like me. Smart Reiju continued, I need you to do something for me. You need me to do something for you? You are the eldest daughter of the Vinsmoke family, the princess of the Germa kingdom, Germa 66 pink poison. You actually let me, a nobody, do something for you? Mu Yun looked solemn, looked at Reiju seriously and said, I won't do anything against my conscience. Hearing the words against conscience, the smile on Reiju's face was restrained a little, but soon she smiled and said, How could it be? Don't worry, it's a very simple thing. Hearing her say this, Mu Yun also let down his guard a little. After all, if Reiju wants to harm him, ignore him, isn't it better to let him fend for himself? Why bother? Okay, I agree. Please help me detoxify. After saying that, Mu Yun sat on the ground and waited for Reiju to detoxify. Suddenly, Reiju held Mu Yun's face with both hands. The two looked at each other, and Mu Yun asked at a loss, Aren't you going to help me detoxify? What are you doing? After all, the girl in front of him is one of the most beautiful women in One Piece. Mu-yun felt a little embarrassed when she stared at him. Reiju smiled and did not answer Mu-yun's question. She slowly moved her face towards Mu-yun. What are you doing? Mu-yun subconsciously wanted to shrink his head back, but was tightly controlled by Reiju's hand and could not move. Chew! Reiju's sexy lips quickly kissed Mu-yun's mouth. At the moment of contact, Mu-yun's mind suddenly became blank. He could not feel what happened next. Because of the strong impact, the CPU in his head had been burned dry. Fuck! How could I forget that this guy detoxifies like this? My first kiss in this world is gone? After a while, Reiju released her hands holding Mu-yun. She wiped the corners of her mouth with her left hand, glanced meaningfully at the lifeless Mu-yun on the ground, and joked, "Thank you for the hospitality." Mu-yun quickly stood up from the ground and shouted, "Woman, don't you have any other way to detoxify?" "Yes." Reiju tidied her clothes and said lightly, "It's just that this method works the fastest. After all, we can't delay the business." Looking at Reiju's indifferent look, Mu-yun was angry but had nowhere to vent. He had to wipe the corners of his mouth and glared at Reiju fiercely. "Tell me, what do you want me to do for you?" Reiju smiled and said mysteriously, "You will know at night." After that, she turned and walked in one direction. Seeing Mu-yun still standing there stupidly, he quickly waved and said, "Follow me." Damn it! Mu-yun dusted himself off and straightened his clothes. He followed Reiju's figure. Go up. The festive atmosphere always makes people feel that time passes quickly. Gradually, the sun sets over the hillside, and the stars and the moon shine in the sky. But the celebration is still crowded with people, and laughter fills the whole street. At this time, in front of a majestic building, a middle-aged man dressed in gorgeous clothes and covered in jewels appeared in front of people. His fat body was wrapped in brocade clothes, looking a little bloated. At this moment, the greasy middle-aged man was chatting with another noble man next to him who was also dressed in luxurious clothes. "Baron Moss, long time no see. What are you doing recently? I haven't seen you at several auctions." "Ha ha ha, I've been busy with official duties recently. Some of my slaves actually wanted to escape, which made me upset for a while." "Ha ha ha, what's there to be upset about? They're just slaves. Can't they just be executed? At worst, I can buy another one." "That's right. I just came to see if there are any good things to sell here." It turned out that a grand auction would be held here in the evening. The rich and nobles of the entire kingdom had received invitations to the auction, so they were all looking forward to the next part. Maybe there would be some favorite products. "Scaros, is there anything special to auction today? I've prepared my purse and am waiting for the good stuff to appear." Baron Moss looked at the auction manager standing at the door to welcome guests, happily opened his arms, and hugged him warmly. "Baron Moss, please rest assured." Scaros, who was hugged by Baron Moss, smiled warmly and replied, "Today's auction will definitely make you feel that it is worth the money." "Ha ha ha, then I'll wait and see." After saying that, Baron Moss happily let go of Scaros and walked quickly into the auction house. Scaros smiled and watched him walk into the venue. When his figure disappeared in front of Scaros, Scaros's face immediately turned cold. He waved his hand, and a service staff came to his side respectfully. "Boss, what's the matter? Are the goods sent by the young master ready?" "Don't worry, boss. Those guys were anesthetized and are lying quietly in the dungeon at the moment. Be careful, don't make any mistakes." "Yes." The service staff immediately stepped aside and walked towards the back alley. Scaros took out a cigarette from his pocket, lit it, and imagined himself being praised by the young master with a face full of enjoyment. At this time, a pair of handsome men and beautiful women stood opposite the auction. The girl held the boy's arm intimately, but the boy turned sideways with some resistance. "Reiju, you don't have to do this to enter the auction." "Don't talk nonsense, this is the only way to sneak in without anyone noticing." "Are you sure? Why do I feel like we are more conspicuous this way?" "Shoo! It's about to start, Hurry up,